Despite relative external tranquility, Yosun Tomor's reign was not a calm and stable one. During his time on the throne, the Yuan dynasty began suffering many natural disasters which would contribute to its demise. In northern Mongolia, the weather became increasingly harsher and colder. The winter of 1323 was a particularly devastating one, as the region was afflicted with bitter cold and snowstorms, leading to the death of most cattle, the livelihood of the Mongols. Subsequently, famine arose and huge numbers sought refuge south. The migration became so problematic that the emperor had no choice but to spend great sums in relief programs and eventually forbade the Mongols from migrating without express permission. In the south, the weather alternated between severe droughts and floods, which destroyed the crops and led to famine as well, forcing the court to allocate much of its finances in relief. Finally, earthquakes shook the nation regularly, with 5 major ones reportedly occurring in the year 1327. With such disasters, many Han Chinese began to think the Yuan dynasty had lost the mandate of heaven, a dynasty's divine right to rule in the Chinese mentality, which the founder Kublai had claimed only 5 decades ago. Inevitably, unrest grew and many small riots erupted in southern provinces, although these troubles were easily put to an end by the Yuan forces. However, more serious revolts were brewing. Many would be inspired by spiritual beliefs such as the White Lotus sect. This social movement was embedded in a syncretic belief of Buddhism and Manichaeism that prophesied that Bodhisattva Maitreya, a successor to the Buddha Gautama, was to come when the world was suffering and in need of aid to establish a new age of Buddhism. In the face of the declining situation of the Yuan dynasty, many in the White Lotus subsequently claimed Maitreya would return at any time to help the followers. As the sect had become more and more radical and violent, it was officially banned by the Yuan court in 1308, but continued as a secret society that grew more and more discontent with the Mongol authorities. In June 1325, a local leader of the sect named Zhao Chaosi managed to rally hundreds of followers and angered men in Xizhou, modern-day Xi County in Henan province. Agitating the crowds, Zhao Chaosi shouted, "米勒府当有天下! Maitreya rules over all," and encouraged everyone to take up arms against the Yuan dynasty. This revolt is regarded as the first of the dynasty's decline. Nonetheless, its impact on the Yuan was small, as the rebels were promptly crushed and their leaders executed. Although Yosun Tomor seemed to genuinely care about the well-being of the empire, he was unable to face the challenges of the times and would leave the dynasty in this tenuous state. Indeed, on the 15th of August 1328, the emperor died of illness at 34 years old in Shangdu. His passing would lead to the most violent succession crisis of the dynasty. 4 years before his death, Yosun Tomor had designated his young son Ergiwag as the crown prince. Subsequently, the loyalist faction, headed by the late emperor's Grand Chancellor of the Right, Daulat Shah, and princes close to Yosun Tomor, organized the 8-year-old prince's enthronement, which was to take place on the 3rd of October 1328 in Shangdu. As the preparations for the child emperor's coronation were made, one could think that the Yuan dynasty would peacefully go on under the regency of loyalist officials. However, history would not see it this way. A new figure would emerge. Back in Hanbalik, an obscure military commander had ambitions of his own. This man was Iltumur, an official of Kipchak origin. Iltumur, also known as Yentumur, had quite a prestigious background. His clan had loyally fought alongside Kublai during the rebellion of Prince Nayan and during the border conflicts against the Chagatai Khanate. Alongside his own father, the commander had been a close retainer of anti-Confucian Emperor Haisan back in the Mongolian steppe. However, after the Confucian Ayurbarvad took power, Iltumur's family had lost most of its fortune and favour in court. Nonetheless, he held a prominent position within the Bureau of Military Affairs, or Privy Council, in charge of the dynasty's whole military. As such, he had been entrusted with the command of the Imperial Guard in Hanbalik when late Yosun Tomor left the capital for Shangdu. It is likely that Iltimour planned to restore his family's glory and developed a cunning scheme to take power back. Now that the emperor was dead, it was the time to act. Only 3 weeks after the death of Yosun Tomor, Iltimour stormed the palace using the powerful Imperial Guard and the support of some high-ranking officials in the early hours of the 8th of September 1328, successfully taking control of the government. Hanbalik was firmly in Iltimour's hands. However, this was only half of his developed scheme. Indeed, his allies in Shangdu were to take action simultaneously and seize control of the secondary capital as well. The conspirators were however discovered by loyalist commanders and executed. Subsequently, the two historical capitals of the Yuan dynasty, Hanbalik and Shangdu, had fallen into the hands of two opposing factions, Iltimours and the loyalists. Inevitably, the war of the two capitals began. While the loyalists, supporting the soon-to-be enthroned Prince Ergibag, assembled their forces to counteract, Iltimour and his faction prepared the coronation of their own emperor in Hanbalik. The Kipchak commander's plan was clear. He would restore Haisan's lineage to the throne, and therefore his own family glory. The legitimacy of Haisan's sons came from a supposed promise between himself and his brother and successor Ayurbarvar, according to which the throne would pass on to Haisan's sons after Ayurbarvar. Since the latter designated instead his own son, Shadbaith, as the crown prince, Iltimour claimed that Haisan's sons were the rightful heirs to the throne, and that anyone else was illegitimate. This supposed agreement, however, seems to be a fabrication. In any case, Iltimour knew he had to act fast. Since Haisan's eldest son, Hoshila, also known as Hüslen or Kosala, was still in exile in the Chagatai Khanate, Iltimour turned his attention to a younger son, Tov Tomor. As a reminder, Tov Tomor was a Mongol prince who had been banished to Hainan Island upon Shadbaith's enthronement. During the subsequent reign of Yosun Tomor, he was recalled to the mainland and settled in Jiankang, modern-day Nanjing. He was then granted the title of Prince of Huai and moved to Jiangning, modern-day Jingzhou. Now was the occasion to escort him to Hanbalik to assume the imperial leadership of the dynasty. For this task, Iltimour dispatched his most loyal and capable general, Boyan of the Merkid tribe, to bring back the Mongol prince to the capital. Meanwhile, the loyalists in Shangdu were ready. The child Prince Ergibag was crowned on the 3rd of October 1328. He would have no temple name, being recorded as Emperor Tianshun after his regnal era name. 2 weeks later, Tov Tomor was enthroned in turn in Hanbalik on the 16th of October and would be recorded as Emperor Wenzong of Yuan and Jayatu Khan. Thus, the Yuan dynasty had two emperors, with both sides supporting their figurehead as the only legitimate leader of the nation. War engulfed the Yuan dynasty. The loyalist faction moved first, marching its forces south to retake Hanbalik. The confident loyalist soldiers breached the Great Wall at several points, reportedly even reaching the northern outskirts of Hanbalik. Unfazed, Iltimour marched his own forces out of the city to meet his enemy in battle, and personally led his soldiers as a seasoned general. As battle broke out, the talented Kipchak commander had no trouble defending Hanbalik. Before long, the loyalists found themselves in a losing position. Keeping them engaged in the turmoil, Iltimour saw the opportunity of attacking Shangdu, stripped of its army, and sent word to his allies in Mongolia and Manchuria. Subsequently, they launched a surprise pincer attack from the east and west on the secondary capital on the 14th of November. Unable to resist the siege, the city surrendered the very next day, and the loyalist leaders were executed. During these events, child Emperor Ergibag disappeared in suspicious circumstances, possibly sacrificed by the loyalists to prevent his capture, or executed by the victorious army. Although Shangdu had fallen, several loyalist strongholds would continue to fight the restoration in Shanxi, Sichuan, and Yunnan provinces. The pacification of the nation would take years, plunging the Yuan dynasty in a costly civil war which drained the treasury. Subsequently, discontent and unrest gravely worsened within the Han Chinese population, which now had to suffer from the civil war in addition to the regular natural disasters. Although the government, now controlled by the military commander Il Tomor, using Tov Tomor as a puppet emperor, was still in control of the nation, the Yuan dynasty had inevitably entered its decline. The man who would overthrow it was just born. Thank you for watching my video, I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or requests, feel free to leave them in the comment section below.